Today we're back in the beautiful Scottish Highlands and I cannot wait to share this phenomenal distillery with you. We're going to do things a little bit differently today and actually start towards the end with maturation here at Tullibardine Distillery. We are here in Tullibardine's warehouses and I am joined by Minnie, the distillery and warehouse manager. Minnie, thank you so much for taking the time to show us around and tell us about all things Tullibardine.
Welcome.
You guys are obviously owned by Terroir Distillers, which is a subsidiary of the French company Picard's Vins and Spiritueux. You have got connections within the wine world, within the rum world, cognac, tequilas. I think you've even got a limoncello as part of the overall portfolio, which is wonderful. And that's why we wanted to start here with maturation, because having all these contacts must have a huge impact on the different styles of maturation that you undertake. Is that right?
Yeah, so obviously we have some classics within our core range. So we do the Sovereign and the 15-year-old are all ex-bourbon, just first fill bourbons, so sort of showing off the character of the distillery and spirit. And then we do a sherry finish, which is obviously classic for any distillery. But we also have Burgundy finish in our core range, which is kind of a reference to the owners. They own a lot of vineyards in Burgundy.
Right.
So they're mainly Pinot Noir casks. And then we also have Sauterne finish, which is a bit sweeter, which is really lovely as well. And then within the core range, we also do an 18-year-old, which has a bit of bourbon, a bit of sherry. So again, a classic kind of makeup for an 18-year-old. So it's got a bit more body. Yeah, so if you're into wine finishes, this is definitely a great distillery.
Well, this is it. And I have to say, maturation, it's where most of the flavor of any whiskey comes from. So the cask is going to have a huge impact. You're obviously going to tell me then that the distillation methods here have a huge impact.
I'm kind of, my background, I'm a distiller. Okay. So my focus is on the spirit. So in my head, you should be able to put the spirit in a refill cask and leave it, and it should have a lot of flavor and really show off. You can obviously add a lot of flavor with cask maturation, but you shouldn't have to.
Yes.
The spirit should be working hard by itself, and that's kind of so that's where I kind of working to get the spirit working really hard so that it makes Stacey's job easier and she can just play around with the casks. So I've always been a bit like that. I like to try a really clean sort of maturation in any distillery, so I'll look out for the independent bottlings so that I can get the character of the actual distillery. Because if you overwhelm it with a sherry cask, you can't always identify the distillery behind it.
No, I'd completely
So I think the measure of a distillery is like, so our 15-year-old's a lovely example of our character because it does show off the spirit. And then from there, it's a really good base from which it works really well in lots of different casks. So you can then play with it, but it's always nice to have that house style that is recognizable. And that's what kind of my job as distillery manager is, to make sure that we're maintaining. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
So I'm definitely a spirit-led whiskey person, but that's just my personal preference.
Well, on that note, let's get out of the warehouse. Let's go and learn how you're creating this magical distillate here at Tullibardine. After you. We are here in the still room. Tell us, what is it that makes Tullibardine so unique, so special? How are you making this spirit different to any other?
So we have kind of a light, fruity Highland style with kind of a good cereal base note to it. We have 29,000 litres of wash coming through over from the Washbacks. Then it gets split between the two wash tools. So basically that comes up as low wines. We have balanced distillation, so we have a shared tank for low wines and fates. So it's an old-fashioned way of running, and it means that the way you're running means your ratios are always right for low wines and fates. So we don't actually ever measure the low wines as they are.
Right.
But the 29,000 litres will basically be of 10,000 litres at 30% or a bit less. So it's 8.5% is our wash. And then, so you're just distilling it down. Then when we charge our spirit stills, we're putting 12,500 litres in each. and they're run quite slowly. So the hearts or the 4 shots is done by time, so that's 20 minutes, which is established from the demisting test. So again, an old-fashioned way of making sure all of the lipids are through the line and the lines are clean.
I see here we've got some beautiful clearix and moon lake off screen. Thank you very much.
So tell us a little bit about the style here. What is it that we're talking about? Those fruity characters, those esters coming off. What's the main note that you look for in your finished spirit here?
Well,
your starting spirit.
Yeah, starting spirit. So, well, it's a clean kind of bright Highland style, lots of fresh fruit notes. There is a strong cereal note to it as well, which will fade over time in cask. So there's like a spicy note to it, which reminds me of Grains of Paradise. If you you'll get the malt, which underlies it all. So the backbone is still the malt, but there's lots of those fresh fruity flavors, and it's very clean. So we don't do any heated spirit at Tullibardine. So we're obviously looking to avoid certain off notes as well. So we nose every batch of new make that goes out. So myself and the blender will always check it. And also most of our operators are trained on sensory as well.
Right.
And especially the warehouse team, who would be our last sort of bastion before it goes out into the world. So they're all trained for sulphury, off notes, sour notes, peat. Obviously we wouldn't have peat here, but some of the casks might have had peat in them, so we nose all of our casks before they get disgorged. Make sure so that's one of the main things we look for, is there's not a slight hint of peat.
Okay.
It can sometimes, tannins from the cask can appear to be peat-like on the palate. So it's not always that, but obviously we've got a profile we're trying to maintain, and that is that clean Highland style.
Absolutely.
So,
and you said about 3 million litres per annum. Are you running 24/7 then?
yeah, we're 24/7 site.
Okay, so
We're at the stills, so now we're going backwards, which I'm really enjoying doing today. Should we
Yeah.
have a look at what goes into making your wash?
Yep.
So, Minnie, we're here at the Washbacks. How many Washbacks have you got? Is it 8 in total?
10 washbacks.
Okay.
8 inside and 2 outside.
Oh, okay.
To the same size. It's just the set temperature is slightly different from the ones outside.
Okay.
So we set these ones at 19 degrees, the ones outside, depending on the time of year, they're currently at 22 degrees. Depends on nighttime temperatures.
Right.
So 29,000 litres. And they've got sealed lids now, which is new. They went in new last year, so with the idea of capturing the carbon from the fermentation. We've also left space for putting in switcher blades in the top, and then also cleaning in place. So that's the next system that we'll put in. So at the moment it's all manual, everything's manual here. You can see the valves are all manual.
For sure, yes.
So the next thing we'd like to take away is the cleaning or handling as chemicals. So, so we do 58-hour fermentations, which is basically to get that 3 million litres a year. So we do 28 mashes a week. So 28 of those a week. We have a gap on the Thursday. And it basically gets you, so it gets a couple of hours just to settle, then you've got basically 12 hours of growth of yeast, and then you start your anaerobic respiration, which will create the ethanol. So that's when you're actually creating whiskey from the sugars. And that basically is completed at 58 hours. So that's why we're at 58 hours. So we've got all the sugars.
So it's a quick process. We want to get as much in and out. 58
Um,
hours, okay.
And then it kind of sometimes sits long as 58 to 60, and then it has a bit of extra fermentation time in the wash charger while it's waiting for the stills. But that's the minimum we'd do.
It's really interesting that you do keep the fermentation so short and still manage to get so much of that fruity character.
Well, there was quite a lot of work that went into that.
Right.
From the company and our sort of owners in France. They put a lot of work into that. I think it was about 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
To get that balance between efficiency, character and production. So that's a bit of an art in itself, is making sure you're still getting the right quality, because that defines everything.
Yes.
But how much can you produce of that quality, and we do sacrifice a bit of efficiency to do that, and we know we do. That was an active decision that was made. So so our mashing is a bit quicker than we'd like, so we lose a bit in efficiency, but it means we can fit in 28 mashes a week, so that means more whiskey. So
phenomenal.
Yeah.
And before we get back over to the mashing, doing all of this in reverse is great. One quick question, what sort of yeast are we using here?
We use, don't know if I can say brand names, but it's AD Murray MG+. So it's Saccharomyces cerevisiae, so it's distiller's yeast.
Okay.
And it's pretty robust. MG Plus gives you a bit more play with temperatures, and so for example you could use less water if you wanted to do a high gravity mash. So it can handle more stress basically.
And is that a liquid yeast?
Liquid yeast, yes.
Fantastic. Oh yeah, no. Just we all love all this geeky stuff. We want to make sure we fully understand what is going into
It's
Tullibardine.
liquid yeast, but we do have dried yeast on reserve if there's any issues, and we have previously used creamed yeast before as well. So, but it would always be distiller's yeast, so the same strain and Saccharomyces cerevisiae.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Amazing washbacks. Let's go and have a little look at the mash tun.
Yeah. So we do a 6-ton mash, so 6 tons of malt goes in. We mix that with 22,000 litres of water at 64 degrees. So that's our first water. So that's kind of your strike temperature is your most important water temperature. So that defines how well your starch gelatinizes and liquefies for the enzymes to get to work on the starch itself. So the starch in malt is quite branched, so it's the same as in a waxy tatty instead of a mealy tatty.
Okay.
And what that means is the first two sets of enzymes can only get so much chopped up. So that 64 degrees is a balance between the first two sets of enzymes, your amylases. And then we also have the branched bits that get digested actually as secondary conversion in the washbacks. And about 15% of the conversion in distilling happens in the washbacks, and that's through limit dextranase. So that works at a much lower temperature, so it kicks in once you've pulled your wort. Okay. So the mash is basically cooking, but it's about converting that starch to sugar. So we have 3 waters here, as is very traditional process. So the first one, 22,064 degrees, and then the second water will be sparged on through the spray balls. And that is a higher temperature, 76 degrees, and we also have a third water which is used as the first water. So the third water strips out the last of the sugars. It's just an efficiency thing. So that is 18,000 litres at 88 degrees, I think, at the moment. So a lot of that, you can work with the maltsters to get the temperatures right. It's one of the things you play with, is the temperatures for the batches of malt that you've got coming through. So 2018, where it was that really hot year, the barley was very difficult to work with, so everybody raised all their temperatures to try and get that barley to work. It was holding a lot of water, it was very difficult to work with. So the waters of the temperatures of your waters is something you definitely play with for efficiency. If you can see something going wrong, you usually check the mill first and then the temperatures for mashing. And then also the amount of raking you do will define the cloudiness of your worts. So that's a character choice. Okay. We have cloudy wort here, mainly because we have to fit in 28 mashes a week. But that's something we could play with as well. And if we did sort of do more of the classic lautering, sort of sparging and draining at the same time, get a softer drainage, we could do some recirculation of the first worts.
Yes.
Then we could get a clearer wort, and that would lend more of those bright, fruity flavours.
Right,
So again, it's a balance. You don't want too many of those. You want it to be still the Tullibardine character. So that's, again, another place we can get some brighter flavours. But again, you'd have to slow down to do that. So we're working to the 28 mashes, so this is the way we worked out to do it. And again, the quality's where it should be. So if it ain't broke, why change it?
Absolutely.
So so did you have any other questions about mashing?
No, I've actually really enjoyed just taking all of that in. I could sit and listen to you for hours talk about all of these different processes. It's wonderful to get fully involved in the sort of the science, the chemistry behind it all, which you're obviously very, very familiar with all elements of your distillery here, which is great. No, I think this is wonderful to see. I'm looking forward to tasting some of this beautiful whiskey now that we've gone through all these processes, tried the new make. Before we get there, though, I think we need to stop off. Last stop is the mill.
Yep.
Normally the first stop, but the last stop for us. Minnie, we're here at your beautiful Porteous mill. I'd imagine that this has been unchanged since the distillery opened, as per usual, but tell me if I'm wrong.
Well, I believe so. I know that David, the previous manager, he definitely augmented it with bits that he kind of scavenged from other distilleries.
Oh, okay. Cool.
So the tipper within the mill, I can't remember, I think it was Ardmore or somewhere up north he managed to get the tipper from, but he was very, very good at recommissioning equipment. So yeah, so it has got a few sort of bits that have been brought from other places. But yeah, it's a Porteous, and yeah, it's
Tried and tested.
pretty much as well as the day it was put in.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so just the 2 roller in. We've still got our beaters. So those are the kind of between the rollers, 2 sets of rollers. You've got beaters which protect the husk and flour from the second set of rollers. So we've still got those. And we would obviously sample it every grind to make sure that we're in spec. So the industry standard would be 20, 70, 10 for husk, grits and flour. We run a bit higher on husk just because we're pushing our process quite hard, so we need a stronger bed. So we put a bit more husk through, which is the sacrifice in efficiency that I was talking about.
Yes.
So that was an active decision. We knew we'd lose a bit of efficiency, but we needed to be able to run as many mashes as we want to run. We needed a bit more husk.
Easier to manage it.
Yeah, so
For sure. Okay.
so, but yeah, so it's we've got the only weighing device we have for the malt in the whole distillery is that tipper, which is 20 kilos, and we basically adjust it based on the malt loads that come in with a couple of nuts, which I've still to get my hand over from David. So yeah, so it's all again very manual and so we're aiming for 6 tons, but we haven't got load cells or anything on any other bits of equipment, so we rely heavily on the maltsters getting the weight right of the stuff coming in.
Right.
And then obviously we lose a bit to the stoner and the dust extraction. But yeah, we put a lot of that dust back into the mash actually, so that would add to our flour component. But it's a classic Porteous mill. The millwright gives us the settings every year, so basically you get where the metal rollers, we've got one in the warehouse actually, you can do a picture of, but they wear as things like stones might get through and just use over time. So the thousandths of an inch setting on here, he gives me the translation into centimetres, which is what I can speak to the maltsters about for the batch of malt, and they can give you recommendations based on what they've worked out. But that actually changes every year, the relationship between those settings and the actual width of the rollers based on wear. So that's where you get a scratchy bit of paper from one of the only people who can maintain a Porteous in the country, and you rely on that for the whole year as your actual settings for your mill.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
Really cool. And out of interest, is there a specific sort of malt that we're using here, a specific sort of barley?
We use Laureate at the moment, so obviously there's approved varieties for distilling so that you don't get ethyl carbamate into the spirit. So we would use approved varieties from maltsters who make distilling malt. We use 4 different companies because we're quite agile as a distillery, so because we are independent, so we negotiate contracts every year. At the moment we're using Crisp's malt, which is 100% Laureate, and yeah, we're running really well on that at the moment. So yeah, it depends on the year as well. So last year held a bit of water as well, so a hotter year generally means more protein in the malt, and it's harder to work with. So but yeah, there's lots of things for distilling. I've worked in places where they're using malt, they're growing themselves. You can't use fertilizer on the land or anything. There's all kinds of rules. Well, distilling malt was different to even brewer's malt. So yeah, so we have quite high spec for that, which maltsters have to meet. And we also have a lab that we send off independent samples to, so that we cross-check. All of our process is cross-checked by a lab, so our draft samples go off, the malt samples go off, pot ale. So we have consents for the amount of alcohol and copper and things in our outputs or our co-products. So we would check all of that independently with a lab. The wash samples go to a lab, and the spirit samples, I think Stacey uses the same lab for that as well. So yeah, we do check everything. So
Great.
any other questions about the milling?
I don't think so. I'm getting very, very thirsty now. It's wonderful to finish here with the Porteous. It's been really interesting doing this backwards, and thank you so much for showing us around your incredible distillery. Are you going to join us for a dram, or is Stacey talking us through?
I think Stacey, the blender, I better get back.
Your
to her.
beauty, yeah, I was going to say, I'm sorry, we've taken up enough of your time, but honestly, Minnie, thank you so much for everyone at home. I'm sure they really value hearing direct from the distillery manager how all of this works. I've certainly found it really interesting, so thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm really
thank
looking
you
forward
very
to
much.
trying a bit more Tullibardine.
Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Everything we've seen so far speaks volumes about the care and precision behind Tullibardine. From the thoughtful approach to fermentation and distillation, to the balance between tradition and efficiency, every detail is carefully considered. There's a real commitment here to letting the spirit speak for itself and to crafting whiskey with both character and clarity. And when all of that dedication comes together, from barley to bottle, you end up with a liquid that truly reflects the hearts and minds that crafted it. So we have finished an amazing tour of Tullibardine Distillery with Minnie, and now we find ourselves in the Custodian's Lounge, an area for Tullibardine's private society to escape. So very, very lucky to be in there and to be joined by Stacey. Now, Stacey, off camera, I was saying you're the master blender here, but you were kind of playing that down a little bit. For everyone at home, what's your role here at Tullibardine?
So I cover blending and inventory. So blending is pretty self-explanatory. Inventory is more of the cask management. So we have about 7,500 casks here on site.
Okay.
And then we have quite a number of casks at other warehouses around about Scotland. So yeah, I manage where they are, what they feed into, what products they're used in, and when they are brought onto site or they're already on site, I allocate that stock for our bottling line, and each cask is nosed before it's disgorged.
Right.
So I would say that's the high level explanation of what I do here.
Fantastic. So basically taking all the wonderful liquid that Minnie and her team are creating, watching over it whilst it's maturing, and then when the time's right, getting it into the bottle, sharing it with the world. You're a master blender in my eyes then, fair enough. Okay, and we've got two really wonderful expressions in front of us here. Tell us a little bit about these two expressions. Why these ones?
So we've got an item here, the Sherry Cask Finish R500 from the core range. So the background on this product is we obviously have our Sovereign, which is our part of our core range as well, which is all bourbon.
Yes.
We have that as a standalone product, and then with that spirit, what we do is we hive off portions of it, and it feeds into either our Sauternes or our Burgundy, and in this case, our Sherry.
Yes.
So it starts off about 6.5 years old, and then it has another 6 months in each of these three finishes.
Fantastic.
And the number, we get a lot of questions about the number, but that relates to the size of the cask. So
Yes.
a 500 is a Sherry butt.
Which is something that I absolutely love about your core range branding. You go into the shops, you find this on a shelf, and already you're getting fully entrenched in the world of whiskey. 500 litre casks. Is it 228 litre as the Burgundy casks?
Yes.
225 litres for the Sauternes. A lovely touch, something that people in our shoes would know, but it's, you know, all these little bits of information really go into the whole experience in my mind. So that's wonderful. So this is the Sherry Cask Finish, Sherry butts used. Is there a specific type of sherry that we're looking at
Yes,
here?
we use Oloroso.
Oloroso exclusively?
Yes.
Fantastic,
So
okay.
it's all Oloroso butts that we use for this product. We do have Oloroso hogsheads on site, but we use them for other things.
Other bits and pieces.
Yeah.
Okay, fascinating. And what is it then that you're looking to achieve with this 500? I suppose first question is why the bigger size casks, but why also specifically Oloroso?
Specifically Oloroso because of the profile that it gives. It's a really spicy, raisiny, dried fruit profile, and we wanted this to be what's described quite commonly as a sherry bomb. It's not an influence by any means in terms of the sherry on the bourbon profile. It really it's quite strong in the palate, strong on the nose. You don't doubt that it's sherry, basically. And we don't want people to question that when they taste it and nose it.
Okay, fantastic. The thing I love about Oloroso as well, that nuttiness, which really lends itself to your spirit's character and kind of amplifies that nuttiness for me. So really, really wonderful. It's incredible, watered down to 43%. You know, you say you don't want to make any mistakes that this is a sherry matured dram. Equally, it's, you know, it's potent. At 43%, it really sits up in the glass, and you definitely know you're drinking a whiskey as well, which is rare when you do water some drams down. You know, sometimes they can come off a little bit flat. Is that something that you're quite keen to kind of watch over? Is there something that you're looking for at the point of, okay, this is now starting to get ready?
In terms of monitoring the spirit, or?
Yeah, in terms of monitoring the spirit, making sure that you're going to have kind of that consistency, I suppose.
Oh yeah, well, this is the thing. It's a common misconception, I think, with blending, that people think that you're in the lab or in the warehouse constantly mixing specific spirits, but a lot of the time, I'd say 80% of your job is actually just a consistent profile of the products that you do.
Yes.
It's not, a lot of the time, it's not always experimental. It's just making sure that someone picks this up off the shelf and they get the same product from the year, whether they go abroad and they pick something up, it's the same profile. We work towards that goal in terms of where we source our cask from. You know, we know the processes and the parameters that we work to here, so we know the base spirit is good. There's a lot of points that we do a lot of checks, but we probably don't need to because of the process that we have in place, where we source the cask from, our parameters here. It all leads towards an end goal where you have a really good quality spirit in bottle.
Absolutely. And the wonderful thing about Tullibardine, as I was saying, not only is it really allowing people to get into the world of whiskey and understand the different cask types, et cetera, but your core range is quite a range of flavors.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't lend itself to just one flavor profile, which I love to see. You know, it makes it a lot more accessible, a lot more interesting. And it's the sort of thing where I can pick up 3 or 4 bottles of Tullibardine and do a tasting of them, and no one's going to get sort of fatigued or fed up. It's all very, one to the next is very, very different.
Yeah.
Now, with these core range products, they're non-age statement. Is there sort of generally an age in mind that we're looking to bottle, or are you entirely focused on the flavor profile and the age really doesn't come into it at all?
No, as I mentioned, it does start off as the sovereign spirit, so then, which is around about 6 to 7 years old, maybe 6.5, something like that. And then we split it off and we let it age for another 6 months in either the Sauternes or the Burgundy.
6 months
about sherry.
period.
It can be longer sometimes. It just depends on what our production needs are, and that reflects on what our sales are. So we always try to stay ahead of that curve and make sure we have stock to fulfill future orders. So I say 6 months. It could be a little bit longer. It has been up to a year at some point. But I mean, you have a really good spirit at the end of this.
Absolutely.
I don't think people are going to complain about that.
And is it largely first fill, second fill, or a mix of all?
No, it's first fill for our core range. It's all first fill Oloroso, first fill Sauternes, first fill Burgundy.
Wonderful.
And it's first fill bourbon for our base spirit as well.
Right.
All into first fill. So that's our sovereign, our 15, our 18, all in first fill bourbon.
Phenomenal. Okay. I was wondering because, again, you know, 6 months to a year, it's not a long finishing period. You're talking about a sherry bomb, which this definitely is, but you'd, or I would certainly assume a first fill in order to give that sort of characteristics, which is absolutely wonderful. Now, we've also got the Murray here.
Yes.
This is actually one that I have tried before, so I'm very excited to get stuck into it again. Tell us a little bit about this release and the Murray range as a whole, if you would.
So interestingly, this spirit was actually recast before I started. So this was in place about 2 years before I got here. So the spirit itself is from 2008, and then it was re-racked into Chateauneuf-du-Pape cask in 2020. And then so it had a 4-year finishing period, but I would say it's more than an actual finishing period. It's not quite obviously a double maturation, but it certainly had a considerable finish on it.
And these are ultimately kind of special limited edition releases, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And so this is the Chateauneuf de Pape, which again, for me, we were talking with Minnie earlier, it's wonderful to see synergy between the wine world and the whiskey world, rum world and the whiskey world, whatever it may be, in this case, obviously wine. And you're very lucky to be able to sort of denote the provenance of these wine casks, something that most Scottish distilleries would probably be cutting their arms off to do so. So does that impact anything when it comes to kind of showcasing that you're not just showcasing your spirit here at Tullibardine, you're also showcasing sort of sister companies, sister brands out in France? Does that have an impact on what you're able to do or what you're looking to achieve?
Definitely, because we are owned by a French company. It's the reason we can use these names.
Yes.
This comes up a lot at whisky shows. People are quite shocked that we can use those names like the Burgundy and the Chateauneuf.
Yes.
Because otherwise it would just have to be explained as a red wine finish.
And this is what you normally see with no details. And what am I going to get from that?
Yeah, and it kind of links into what people know and understand about Tullibardine as well. I don't want to say we're a dark horse, but I feel like people don't understand our reach, I would say, in the industry and what we actually do and what we can do and what we have been doing.
Right. I'd agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, definitely.
So when we actually explain that we have this parent company that's French and that's where we source our casks, it's a bit of a revelation for people and exciting for them, I think, as well.
Absolutely.
To know that they have something that is original and legit, for want of a better word.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Legitimate.
Absolutely. I think I was lucky enough actually to try this with yourself and Ros at the Whiskey Show, and I was blown away. But again, I knew that it was a French-owned company. I knew that you had ties. I didn't realize how strong those ties were. And I'm very excited to see this Murray range continue to grow, lots of different cask experimentation, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, for me, it is very reminiscent of Chateauneuf de Pape wine, which I would constantly turn to in the shops. And so seeing it on a whiskey bottle, I just grabbed that straight away. But it has that depth of tannins, slight astringency, while still being full of those sort of plummy, dark fruits, which for me is just an absolute revelation. And again, 43 and now 46% on the Murray, they actually really stand up wonderfully. I think there's lots of purists, and I think, we all go through that stage of wanting cask strength, everything, or high strength. And this sort of product for me is all about the quality, and it doesn't need to be any stronger. It sits so well in the glass. It does everything that you want it to do and more. And I think the wonderful thing about these as well, I hope you don't take any offense, I think they go really well in cocktails as well as drinking them neat. They're such wonderful whiskeys to have neat. And, I am a bit of a purist, so I would generally have it this way. But this is the sort of thing where, like I say, that mouthfeel, particularly with the Murray, could probably be a fantastic base spirit in a lot of cocktails. And for me, that is the mark of a truly great whiskey. There's not one way of enjoying it. There's a whole different ways, lots of different ways of experiencing it, which really does make all the difference.
No, I'd have to agree. The reason we have the core range in these consistent additions, such as the Murray, we want to keep it accessible to people. We do special editions, the single cask editions, that are high strength, that are cask strength. So we do have that. We kind of bookend our range quite well, I would say.
Absolutely, yeah.
We have the 43s, and then we have everything up to our recent edition, the Zinfandel, that was 64.7. So we can do it, we do it.
Yeah, and it works well.
Yeah, but we want to remain accessible and cater to all palates, and I think our range covers that.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, listen, thank you so much for taking the time to talk me through these two amazing whiskies. And like I say, thank you for letting me into the custodian lounge. I'm very privileged. I'll need to sign up and become a custodian now. For all of you at home, please do have a look at the custodian platform, because it's a great way of fully getting involved with Tullibardine and getting access to some releases maybe a little bit early, or knowing what's coming before everybody else does. So Stacey, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Please keep doing the phenomenal work that you are doing here. We're very much looking forward to watching Tullibardine grow. Sláinte.
Thank you.